If you want dinner, lick it off the floor. My son-in-law mocked me after knocking my plate down while making a toast at dinner. I stood up, adjusted my coat, and said 3 words that left him completely terrified. The next day, I did something even worse. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. The invitation came on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered through Sarah's usual cheerful voice over the phone. Dad, Marcus got that promotion at the firm. We're having a celebration dinner this Saturday, 7 o'clock. Please come. I should have known better. After 3 years of being widowed, after countless dinners where I felt more like an unwanted guest than family, I should have declined politely. But Sarah was my only child, my only connection to what remained of my family. So I pressed my best shirt, polished my shoes, and drove the 30-minute journey to their suburban home with a bottle of wine and hoped that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Their house always intimidated me a little, not because it was particularly grand, but because everything about it screamed Marcus's influence. The modern furniture that Sarah would never have chosen on her own, the abstract art that meant nothing to anyone, the cold marble countertops that made the kitchen feel more like a showroom than a place where a family lived. My Sarah had always preferred warm, cozy spaces. Before Marcus, her apartment had been filled with soft fabrics and family photos. Now those photos were relegated to a single shelf in the hallway, almost hidden. Marcus answered the door wearing what I'd come to recognize as his performance smile, the one he used when he needed to appear pleasant but couldn't quite hide his disdain. Darren, right on time. Come in, come in. His voice carried that artificial enthusiasm that made my skin crawl. The dining room was set for 8 people. I recognized most of the faces, Marcus's colleagues from the law firm, a couple I'd met at their wedding, and Sarah's friend Jennifer, who always tried too hard to make conversation with me. Sarah emerged from the kitchen, wearing a dress I didn't recognize, looking beautiful but somehow dimmed, like a light bulb running on too little power. Dad, she kissed my cheek, and for a moment I smelled her familiar perfume, the same one she'd worn since college. I'm so glad you could make it. Marcus was already holding court at the head of the table, regaling his guests with the story of his promotion. Senior partner at 35, he was saying, gesturing with his wine glass. Youngest in the firm's history. I guess all those 70-hour weeks finally paid off. I took my assigned seat, naturally the farthest from Marcus, squeezed between the wall and Jennifer, who immediately launched into a detailed account of her daughter's college applications. I nodded and smiled, but my attention kept drifting to Sarah. She was playing the perfect hostess, refilling glasses and ensuring everyone had enough to eat. But there was something mechanical about her movements. When she laughed at Marcus's jokes, it sounded hollow. The meal itself was elaborate, some kind of seafood dish that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. I ate carefully, aware that every movement was being observed. Marcus had a way of making me feel like an exhibit in a museum, something to be endured rather than enjoyed. So, Darren, Marcus said during a lull in conversation, his voice carrying across the table like a prosecutor addressing a witness, still keeping busy in retirement. The question was innocent enough, but I knew Marcus well enough to recognize the trap. He wanted me to admit that my days were empty, that I spent my time watching television and waiting for phone calls that rarely came. I stay active, I replied simply. That's wonderful, said one of Marcus's colleagues, a woman with kind eyes who seemed genuinely interested. What sorts of activities do you enjoy? Before I could answer, Marcus laughed. Oh, Darren's very modest. He doesn't like to brag about his exciting life of grocery shopping and doctor's appointments. The table fell silent. Sarah's face flushed red, but she said nothing. She never said anything when Marcus made these little cuts, these casual cruelties that he passed off as humor. I felt the familiar burn of humiliation in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Marcus, Jennifer said softly, clearly uncomfortable. What? I'm just teasing. Darren knows I'm kidding, don't you, Darren? Marcus's smile was sharp as a blade. We have that kind of relationship, very honest, very direct. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The conversation moved on, but the damage was done. I could feel the pity radiating from the other guests, the way they carefully avoided meeting my eyes. The worst part came during dessert. Sarah had made my favorite chocolate cake, the same recipe her mother used to make, with the cream cheese frosting I'd always loved. It was a small kindness, a gesture that reminded me of the daughter I'd raised, the one who used to climb into my lap to read bedtime stories. I was halfway through my slice when Marcus started telling a story about a difficult client, someone who apparently reminded him of his father-in-law. "You know how it is with older people," he said, his voice carrying that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "They get set in their ways, refuse to adapt to how things work now. They think the world owes them something just because they've been around for a while." I could feel my hands trembling slightly, but I continued eating, determined not to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. That's when it happened. Marcus was gesturing wildly with his wine glass, performing for his audience, when he, accidentally, knocked into my arm. The plate flew from my hands, cake and frosting splattering across the hardwood floor in a mess of chocolate and cream. The table erupted in concerned voices, people offering napkins and apologies. But Marcus just sat there, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth, watching me stare at the ruined dessert. "Oh no," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Darren, I'm so sorry. What a mess." He paused, letting the moment stretch, making sure everyone was watching. Then he raised his wine glass in a mock toast. "Well, if you want to finish your dinner, you'll have to lick it off the floor." The words hit me like a physical blow. Several people gasped, and I heard Jennifer whisper, "Marcus," in shock. But what hurt most was Sarah's silence. She sat frozen, her face pale, but she said nothing at all. I stood slowly, my joints protesting after sitting for so long. Every eye in the room was on me as I carefully adjusted my jacket, smoothing down the fabric with hands that had stopped shaking. I looked directly at Marcus, whose smug expression was beginning to waver as he realized that something had changed in my demeanor. I leaned down, just close enough for him to hear me clearly, and spoke 3 words that I knew would haunt him. "I know everything." The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no sound came out. I straightened up, nodded politely to the shocked guests, and walked out of that house with my dignity intact and my secret weapon finally revealed. 24 hours later, I would make my next move, and Marcus would discover that underestimating a 68-year-old man had been the biggest mistake of his life. 3 weeks before that humiliating dinner, I had discovered something that changed everything I thought I knew about my son-in-law. It was a Thursday afternoon in early October, one of those crisp autumn days when the air carries the promise of winter. Sarah had called that morning, her voice strained with exhaustion. "Dad, I'm having the worst day. The presentation I've been working on for weeks got moved up, and I have to fly to Chicago tonight. Could you possibly check on the house? The contractor is supposed to come fix the leak in the guest bathroom, and Marcus will be in court all day." Of course I said yes. Sarah had been working herself to exhaustion lately, pulling long hours at the marketing firm while trying to maintain Marcus's vision of the perfect home. The least I could do was handle a simple contractor visit. I arrived at their house around 2 in the afternoon, letting myself in with the spare key Sarah had given me months ago. The contractor wasn't due until 3:30, so I settled into the living room with a book, enjoying the quiet. Their house might have been cold and modern, but it was peaceful when Marcus wasn't filling it with his voice. That's when I heard the front door open. My first thought was that Marcus had come home early. I called out a greeting but got no response. Instead, I heard voices. Marcus's voice and someone else. A woman, but not Sarah. The voice was softer, younger, with a slight accent I couldn't place. "Are you sure she won't be back?" the woman asked. "Not until tomorrow night," Marcus replied, his voice carrying a warmth I'd never heard him use with Sarah. "The Chicago meeting will run late, and she'll probably stay overnight rather than catch a red-eye." I sat frozen in the chair, my book forgotten in my lap. The rational part of my mind tried to find innocent explanations. Maybe it was a colleague, maybe they were working on a case. But something in the tone of their voices, something intimate and familiar, told me I was witnessing something else entirely. They moved through the house, their voices growing clearer as they approached the living room. I had seconds to decide what to do. I could announce my presence, face the awkwardness of whatever this was, or I could hide and hope they didn't notice me. I chose to hide. Moving as quietly as my aging joints would allow, I slipped behind the large sectional sofa that dominated the room. It wasn't ideal cover, but the way the furniture was arranged created a small blind spot near the window. I crouched there, feeling ridiculous and terrified in equal measure, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they would hear it. God, I've missed this, the woman said, and I heard the unmistakable sound of a kiss, a long, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn. I know, baby, this case has been consuming everything, but it's almost over, and then we can start making real plans. My hands were shaking now. Real plans. The phrase hung in the air like a death sentence for my daughter's marriage. What about Sarah? The woman asked. You said you were going to tell her soon. Marcus laughed, but it wasn't the cruel laugh I'd grown accustomed to at family dinners. This was different, casual, dismissive. Sarah's so buried in her work she wouldn't notice if I brought home a marching band. Besides, she's not exactly making this difficult. She practically lives at the office now. But you will tell her? I can't keep doing this, Marcus. Sneaking around, pretending we're just friends when we run into people. I want a real relationship. There was a pause, and I heard movement, fabric rustling, footsteps on the hardwood floor. They were moving toward the couch where I was hidden. My back was screaming from the awkward position, but I didn't dare move. Of course I'll tell her, Marcus said, his voice now very close. But I need to time it right. Sarah's been handling some major accounts, and I can't have her falling apart and making mistakes that reflect badly on both of us. You know how she gets when she's stressed. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. He was talking about my daughter like she was a business problem to be managed, an inconvenience to be handled at the most opportune moment. Sometimes I think you're just stringing me along, the woman said, and now I could hear the doubt creeping into her voice. Amanda, look at me. I heard Marcus move closer to her. I love you. I've loved you since the day we met at that conference. This thing with Sarah, it's been over for years. We're just roommates who happen to share a mortgage. Amanda, I filed the name away, along with everything else I was learning about the man my daughter had married. She doesn't even know who I am, does she? Amanda asked. You've never mentioned me. Why would I? She wouldn't understand. Sarah sees everything in black and white. She doesn't understand that sometimes relationships just run their course, that people grow apart. I thought about all the times Sarah had called me, worried about her marriage, asking if it was normal for couples to feel distant. She'd blamed herself, wondered if she was working too much, not being attentive enough, all while Marcus was building a relationship with another woman. They moved away from the couch, their voices growing fainter as they headed upstairs. I stayed hidden for another 10 minutes, listening to the sounds of their affair playing out in the bedroom Sarah shared with her husband. When I finally heard the shower running, I crept out of my hiding place and quietly let myself out the back door. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd witnessed. Part of me wanted to call Sarah immediately, to warn her, to protect her from the devastating betrayal that was coming. But another part of me, the part that had learned hard lessons about timing and strategy during my years in the military, told me to wait. I needed proof. I needed to understand the full scope of what Marcus was doing before I destroyed my daughter's world, and I needed to figure out how to tell her in a way that wouldn't also destroy her. The contractor never showed up that day. When Sarah called that evening to check, I told her everything had gone smoothly. It was the first lie I'd ever told my daughter, but it wouldn't be the last. Over the next 3 weeks, I watched Marcus differently. Every family interaction took on new meaning. When he made snide comments about Sarah working late, I heard the relief in his voice. When he talked about his busy schedule, I wondered how much of it was really spent with Amanda. When he criticized Sarah for being distracted or tired, I wanted to grab him by the throat and tell him exactly why she seemed distant, because she could sense, on some subconscious level, that her marriage was a lie. The night of that terrible dinner, when Marcus pushed me too far, when he humiliated me in front of his friends and colleagues while my daughter sat silent, I realized something important. Marcus thought he held all the power in our family dynamic. He thought he could treat me like a doddering old fool because I was just Sarah's helpless father, dependent on their charity and too weak to fight back. He had no idea that I was sitting on information that could destroy his carefully constructed life in a matter of minutes. He had no idea that the man he was humiliating had spent 40 years in military intelligence, that I understood better than most people how to gather information and use it strategically. When I leaned down and whispered those 3 words, "I know everything," I watched his face transform from smug superiority to genuine terror. Because in that moment, Marcus realized what I had known for weeks. The balance of power in our family had shifted completely, and tomorrow, I would begin to use that power to protect my daughter, even if it meant breaking her heart in the process. The morning after the dinner, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. For too long, I had allowed Marcus to make me feel small, irrelevant, like a burden my daughter carried out of obligation. But lying in my bed at 5:30 in the morning, watching the sunrise paint my bedroom walls gold. I realized that my 40 years in military intelligence hadn't been erased by retirement. I still knew how to plan, how to strategize, and most importantly, how to win. My first call was to Tommy Rodriguez, an old colleague from my Army days who had transitioned into private investigation after retiring. Tommy and I had served together in Germany during the Cold War, back when gathering intelligence meant patience, careful observation, and meticulous documentation. If anyone could help me build an airtight case against Marcus, it was Tommy. "Darren Walsh," Tommy's voice crackled through the phone, warm with genuine affection. "I was wondering when you'd call. Heard through the grapevine that you've been dealing with some family complications." The military community was smaller than most people realized, especially among those of us who had worked in intelligence. Word traveled fast when one of our own was having trouble. "I need your help, Tommy. Professional help. And I need it done quietly, carefully, by someone I trust completely." "What are we talking about here? Cheating spouse? Son-in-law? Cheating on my daughter? I've got some evidence, but I need more. Enough to make sure she believes me when I tell her, and enough to protect her in whatever comes next." Tommy was quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear him thinking. "This isn't about revenge, is it, Darren? Because if you're looking to destroy this guy out of anger..." "It's about protecting Sarah," I said firmly. "She doesn't know what kind of man she married. And when she finds out, she's going to need every advantage she can get." "All right, but we do this right. Professional, clean, legal. I don't want you getting into trouble because you're trying to help your daughter." We arranged to meet that afternoon at a small diner outside of town, the kind of place where two old men having coffee wouldn't attract any attention. Tommy looked exactly the same as he had 15 years ago when we'd both retired. Gray hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of steady presence that came from decades of dealing with other people's secrets. "Tell me everything," he said, pulling out a small notebook. I told him about discovering Marcus with Amanda, about the conversations I'd overheard, about the pattern of behavior I'd observed over the years. Tommy listened without interruption, occasionally jotting down notes in his careful handwriting. "The woman's name is Amanda, you said? Any last name?" "I never heard one. But Marcus mentioned meeting her at a conference. He's a lawyer, works primarily on corporate cases." Tommy nodded. "That's enough to work with. What's your timeline? How quickly do you need this wrapped up?" "As quickly as possible without compromising the quality of the investigation. Every day I wait is another day Sarah's living a lie." "Understood. But Darren, you need to be prepared for what this might reveal. Sometimes when you start pulling threads, the whole fabric unravels. There might be more here than just an affair." I thought about that warning over the next several days as Tommy began his work. He was thorough and discreet, using techniques that would have made our old commanding officers proud. Within a week, he had identified Amanda Morrison, a paralegal at a competing law firm who had attended the same legal conference as Marcus 8 months earlier. "She's 28, divorced, no kids," Tommy reported during our second meeting. "Lives in a condo about 15 minutes from your son-in-law's office. They've been seen together at restaurants, hotels, even took a weekend trip to Napa Valley last month while your daughter was visiting her friend in Portland." Each piece of information felt like a nail in the coffin of Sarah's marriage, but I forced myself to remain objective. This wasn't about my feelings toward Marcus. This was about giving Sarah the information she needed to make informed decisions about her life. "There's more," Tommy continued, his expression growing more serious. "I've been tracking their financial records, legally of course, through public information and credit reports. Marcus has been spending money on things that don't match up with his lifestyle with Sarah. Expensive dinners at restaurants she's never been to, hotel rooms charged when she was out of town, jewelry purchases from stores she doesn't shop at." "How much money are we talking about? In the last 6 months?" "Probably around $15,000, maybe more. All of it coming from credit cards that appear to be in his name only." That hit me like a punch to the stomach. $15,000 was more than I spent in 6 months on everything: housing, food, medical expenses, everything. The casual way Marcus was spending that kind of money on his affair while Sarah worked herself to exhaustion trying to contribute to their household made my blood boil. "Can you document all of this? Create a timeline? Get receipts? Build a comprehensive picture?" "Already working on it. But Darren, there's something else. Something that might be more important than the affair itself." Tommy pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. Inside were bank statements, credit reports, and what looked like incorporation documents. "Marcus has been setting up some kind of business on the side. an LLC that was incorporated 3 months ago. As far as I can tell, your daughter doesn't know anything about it. I studied the documents, my mind racing. What kind of business? That's what I'm still trying to figure out. But he's been moving money into it, significant amounts. And Amanda Morrison? She's listed as the co-owner. The implications hit me immediately. This wasn't just an affair. This was Marcus planning an exit strategy. He was building a new life with Amanda, complete with shared business interests, while Sarah remained completely in the dark. How long before you can give me everything? A complete picture? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I want to make sure we don't miss anything. If this goes to court, and it probably will, your daughter's going to need documentation that will hold up under scrutiny. I spent those 2 weeks watching Marcus with new eyes. Now that I knew what to look for, his behavior patterns became obvious. The late nights at the office that corresponded with charges at restaurants across town, the weekend golf games that lined up with hotel charges, the business trips that didn't quite match his firm's travel calendar. Most painful of all was watching Sarah. She was trying so hard to make her marriage work, to be the perfect wife despite the growing distance between them. She cooked Marcus's favorite meals, planned romantic evenings that he found excuses to avoid, and blamed herself when he seemed distracted or uninterested. "Dad, do you think I'm working too much?" she asked me during one of our weekly phone calls. Marcus seems so stressed lately, and I wonder if I'm not being supportive enough. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed not to tell her the truth right then. But I knew that timing was everything. Sarah needed to hear about Marcus's betrayal in the right way, at the right time, with enough evidence to make denial impossible. Marcus, meanwhile, had become increasingly paranoid since the dinner party. He watched me carefully during family gatherings, his confident swagger replaced by nervous energy. He knew I had some kind of information, but he couldn't figure out what it was or how much I knew. The breakthrough came during the 3rd week of Tommy's investigation. He called me on a Wednesday evening, excitement clear in his voice. "Darren, you need to see this. I've been monitoring their communications, all legal, everything they've done in public or semi-public spaces, and I just documented something big." "What kind of something?" "Marcus and Amanda were at a real estate office yesterday. They're looking at houses together. Specifically, they're looking at houses in Amanda's name, using money from their joint business account. I have photos of them with a realtor, looking at properties in the suburbs about an hour from where Sarah lives." The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Marcus wasn't just having an affair. He was building an entirely new life with Amanda while keeping Sarah as a financial safety net. He was planning to leave her, but only after he had secured his exit strategy and protected his assets. "Tommy, I need everything you have. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence. It's time to tell Sarah the truth." "Are you sure you're ready for this? Once you show her this information, there's no going back. Her marriage is over." I thought about my daughter, working late nights and weekends, trying to save a marriage that had been dead for months. I thought about Marcus's cruel comments, his casual dismissal of her worth, his arrogant assumption that he could manipulate all of us indefinitely. Her marriage was over the day Marcus decided to start building a life with someone else, I said. I'm just going to make sure she knows it. The next morning I would call Sarah and ask her to lunch, just the 2 of us, somewhere quiet where we could talk without interruption, and I would give her the gift of truth no matter how much it hurt us both. Tommy delivered the complete file on a cold Thursday morning in November. We met at the same diner where this had all begun 3 weeks earlier, but this time the manila envelope he placed on the table between us was thick with evidence that would change Sarah's life forever. "This is everything," he said quietly. His weathered hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had gone cold. Financial records, photographs, timeline documentation, business filings. It's more comprehensive than most divorce attorneys managed to compile in months of litigation. I opened the envelope with hands that trembled slightly, not from age, but from the weight of what I was about to see. The first document was a timeline, meticulously organized, showing 8 months of Marcus's double life laid out in stark black and white. March 15th. First documented dinner with Amanda Morrison at Chez Laurent, a restaurant 30 miles from Sarah's office. Cost $247. March 22nd, hotel charge at the Marriott downtown. Sarah was visiting her college roommate in Seattle that weekend. April 3rd, jewelry purchase at Tiffany & Company. 1 diamond tennis bracelet, $3,800, not a piece I had ever seen Sarah wear. The list went on for pages, each entry a small betrayal that added up to a devastating picture of deception, but it was the financial analysis that truly shocked me. Tommy, this shows Marcus has spent almost $30,000 on this affair. $30,000. Where is this money coming from? Tommy's expression was grim. That's where things get complicated, Darren. Some of it's coming from credit cards in his name only, which is bad enough, but some of it appears to be coming from joint accounts that include Sarah's income. I felt my chest tighten with rage. He's using her money to finance his affair? It looks that way. There are transfers from their joint savings account, money that was supposed to be for their vacation to Europe next spring. Instead, it went to fund weekend getaways with Amanda, expensive dinners, and startup costs for their business venture. The business venture. That was the piece that elevated this from a simple affair to something much more calculated and cruel. According to Tommy's research, Marcus and Amanda had incorporated something called Coastal Consulting Solutions 3 months ago, with both of them listed as equal partners. What exactly does this business do? I asked, studying the incorporation documents. Near as I can tell, it's designed to be a legal consulting firm that specializes in corporate restructuring. But here's the thing. Marcus has been using his position at his current firm to identify potential clients, then steering them toward this new business. It's a classic setup for someone planning to leave their job and take their client base with them. Is that legal? Ethically questionable at best, potentially actionable depending on his employment contract. But that's not the worst part. Tommy pulled out another set of documents. Look at the business address. I studied the paperwork. The address was familiar, but it took me a moment to place it. Then it hit me. This is Amanda's condo address. Exactly. Marcus is essentially running a business out of his girlfriend's home while his wife thinks he's working late at the office. And get this. According to the financial records, he's been charging business expenses to their joint credit card. Office supplies, computer equipment, even furniture. Sarah has been unknowingly funding the infrastructure for her husband's exit strategy. The betrayal was so comprehensive, so methodically planned, that I found myself almost admiring the cold efficiency of it, even as it made me sick to my stomach. Marcus hadn't just fallen into an affair. He had orchestrated a complete transition to a new life, using Sarah's financial resources and emotional trust to fund his escape. There's more, Tommy said, pulling out a folder of photographs. These were taken over the past 2 weeks. I wanted to make sure the relationship was still active before we proceeded. The photographs were painful to look at. Marcus and Amanda at restaurants, holding hands across candlelit tables. Marcus and Amanda entering and leaving her condo building. Marcus and Amanda looking at houses with a real estate agent. Studying floor plans like a couple planning their future together. In one particularly damning photo, taken at a jewelry store, Marcus was examining what appeared to be engagement rings, while Amanda looked on with obvious excitement. When was this taken? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Last Saturday afternoon, while Sarah was working overtime on that presentation for the Morrison account. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was working to support their lifestyle while he was shopping for engagement rings for another woman. I closed the folder, unable to look at any more evidence of my daughter's husband planning a future that didn't include her. Is there any chance this isn't what it looks like? Any innocent explanation? Tommy shook his head. Darren, I've been doing this for 20 years. This is as clear-cut as they come. Marcus is planning to leave Sarah, but he's trying to do it in a way that protects his assets and minimizes his financial obligations. The business with Amanda gives him somewhere to hide income. The separate credit cards make it harder for Sarah to track his spending. Even the timing is calculated. He's waiting until after Sarah finishes her big project at work, probably so he can argue that her career is stable and she doesn't need alimony. The strategic nature of Marcus's betrayal was what hurt most. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated campaign to destroy my daughter's life while positioning himself for maximum advantage. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you. And on Sarah. You could confront Marcus directly, try to force him to end the affair and recommit to the marriage. But honestly, based on what I've seen, I don't think he wants to save the marriage. I think he's just waiting for the right moment to pull the trigger. Or you give this information to Sarah and let her decide how to handle it. She could confront him. She could file for divorce. She could try to work things out, but at least she'd be making those decisions with full knowledge of what she's dealing with. I thought about my daughter, probably at her office right now, working late again while trying to figure out why her marriage felt so distant. She was a smart woman, successful in her career, but she had always seen the best in people. She would blame herself for Marcus's behavior, wonder what she had done wrong. how she could have been a better wife. "There's one more thing," Tommy said, hesitating slightly. "I debated whether to include this, but I think you need to know. Marcus has been researching divorce law, specifically how to minimize alimony payments and protect assets during dissolution proceedings. He's been very careful about it, using private browsing and accessing the information from computers outside his office. But I was able to track some of his activity." "How long has he been researching this?" "At least 2 months, possibly longer." 2 months ago, Sarah had been planning their anniversary dinner, talking excitedly about a romantic weekend getaway they had booked. While she was planning to celebrate their marriage, Marcus was researching how to end it with minimal cost to himself. I gathered all the documents and photos, sliding them back into the envelope with hands that shook with anger. "Tommy, I need you to make copies of everything. Complete sets. One for Sarah, one for whatever attorney she chooses, and one for my records. Already done. And Darren, when you tell her, make sure she understands that none of this is her fault. In my experience, the victims of this kind of systematic deception always blame themselves first." After Tommy left, I sat in my car in the diner parking lot for almost an hour, staring at the envelope that contained the destruction of my daughter's marriage. Part of me wanted to drive straight to Marcus's office and confront him myself, to force him to look me in the eye while I detailed exactly what kind of man he was. But I had learned patience during my years in intelligence work. I had learned that information was only powerful when it was used at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. It was time to call Sarah and arrange that lunch. It was time to give her the truth, no matter how much it would hurt us both. That evening, as I sat in my apartment organizing the evidence into a logical sequence, my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the caller ID, and for a moment I considered not answering. How could I make small talk about her day when I knew what I was about to reveal to her? "Hi, Dad." Her voice was tired but warm. "How was your day?" "Fine, sweetheart." "How are you holding up? You sound exhausted." "Just busy. Marcus is working late again tonight, so I thought I'd call and check in. We haven't talked much this week." Marcus was working late. I wondered if he was actually at the office, or if he was with Amanda, planning their future while Sarah sat alone in their house, missing him. "Sarah, would you like to have lunch tomorrow? Just the two of us. I feel like we haven't had much time to catch up lately." "That sounds wonderful, Dad. I could use a break from all this craziness at work. Where would you like to go?" "How about that little cafe downtown? The one with the quiet booths in the back?" "Perfect. Noon? I'll see you there." After she hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by evidence of her husband's betrayal, and prepared myself for the most difficult conversation of my life. Tomorrow, I would watch my daughter's world collapse. But I would also give her the information she needed to rebuild it on her own terms. I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, choosing a corner booth where we could speak privately without being overheard. The manila envelope sat on the seat beside me like a loaded weapon, heavy with the power to destroy my daughter's world. I ordered coffee and waited, rehearsing in my mind how to begin the conversation that would change everything. Sarah walked in at exactly noon, looking professional in her navy blue suit, but carrying the exhaustion in her shoulders that had become her constant companion. She slid into the booth across from me with a tired smile, and for a moment I almost lost my resolve. She looked so much like her mother at that age, determined, hopeful, believing that hard work and love could overcome any obstacle. "Thanks for suggesting this, Dad. I really needed to get out of the office." She picked up her menu, then paused, studying my face. "Are you okay? You look serious." "I'm fine, sweetheart. But we need to talk about something important." The waitress came over and Sarah ordered a salad she probably wouldn't eat. I could see her mind was still partially at the office, thinking about the presentation she'd left unfinished, the emails that would pile up while she was gone. She had no idea that in the next hour, her work concerns would become completely irrelevant. "Sarah," I began carefully, "I need to tell you something about Marcus. Something I discovered accidentally, and something I've been investigating to make sure I had all the facts before I talked to you." Her expression shifted immediately from casual interest to concern. "What kind of something? Dad, you're scaring me." 3 weeks ago, I went to your house to meet a contractor while you were in Chicago. Marcus came home while I was there, but he wasn't alone. I watched her face as the implication sank in. The color drained from her cheeks, but she shook her head slightly. as if she could will away what I was about to tell her. What do you mean he wasn't alone? He was with a woman named Amanda Morrison. They were intimate. This wasn't a business meeting or a casual friendship, Sarah. They were acting like a couple. Sarah's hands tightened around her water glass. That's impossible. Marcus wouldn't. He's been working so hard lately, he barely has time for me, let alone. She trailed off, her mind clearly racing through recent conversations, looking for explanations that would make this go away. I hired a private investigator. I continued gently. Someone I trust from my military days. I needed to know the full scope of what was happening before I told you. A private investigator? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Dad, how long has this been going on? I reached for the envelope. At least 8 months? Probably longer. I slid the timeline across the table. This documents their relationship from the first dinner I could verify until last week. Sarah's hands shook as she picked up the papers. I watched her face as she read through the entries, saw the exact moment when the reality hit her. March 15th, March 22nd, April 3rd. Each date corresponded to a night Marcus had claimed to be working late. A weekend he'd said he was playing golf. A business trip that had seemed unnecessarily long. Oh God, she whispered, her voice breaking. The weekend I went to Portland to see Jennifer. He said he had to work Saturday, couldn't come with me, but this says he was at a hotel with her. Sarah, there's more, and it's going to be harder to hear. I showed her the financial records, explaining how Marcus had been using their joint accounts to fund his affair. I watched her face crumble as she realized that the vacation money they'd been saving, the emergency fund she'd contributed to faithfully every month, had been spent on romantic dinners and hotel rooms for Marcus and his lover. $30,000, she said, staring at the numbers. $30,000 of our money. Money I worked overtime to save. It gets worse, I said quietly, pulling out the business and corporation documents. They've started a company together. Marcus has been building a new life with this woman, using your financial resources to fund it. Sarah read through the paperwork with the careful attention of someone trying to understand a foreign language. As a marketing professional, she understood business documents, but seeing her husband's name linked with another woman's in a legal partnership was clearly devastating. Coastal Consulting Solutions, she read aloud. He never mentioned starting a business. We talk about everything. She stopped, laughing bitterly. I thought we talked about everything. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I know this is destroying you, but there's one more thing you need to see. I showed her the photographs. I had debated whether to include them, but I knew she needed to see the depth of Marcus's commitment to this other relationship. She looked through them slowly, her breathing becoming more shallow with each image. The photo of Marcus and Amanda looking at engagement rings was the final blow. Sarah stared at it for a long moment, then carefully set it down and covered her face with her hands. He's going to leave me, she said through her fingers. He's planning to leave me for her. Yes, I think he is. When? I don't know, but based on the timeline, I think he's waiting for you to finish your current project at work. He's been researching divorce law, specifically how to minimize alimony payments. Sarah looked up at me then, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen since she was a child. Complete vulnerability, the kind that comes when your entire worldview collapses. How long have you known? I've suspected since that day at your house. I've had confirmation for about a week. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I needed to make sure I had enough evidence that he couldn't deny it or manipulate you into doubting yourself, and because I hesitated, then decided she deserved complete honesty, because I knew that once I told you, there would be no going back. Your marriage would be over, and I wanted to make sure you had every advantage when that happened. Sarah was quiet for a long time, staring down at the photographs scattered across the table. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but hollow. I've been blaming myself for months. He's been so distant, so critical. I thought I was working too much, not being a good enough wife. I've been killing myself trying to save a marriage that he ended months ago. This is not your fault, Sarah. None of it. Isn't it, though? She looked up at me with eyes full of pain. How could I not know? How could I live with someone for 3 years and not realize he was living a completely different life? Because you trusted him. Because you loved him. because normal people don't assume the person they married is capable of this level of deception. Our food arrived, but neither of us touched it. Sarah gathered the photographs and documents into a neat pile, her movements precise and controlled. I recognized the behavior. It was how she had always dealt with overwhelming situations, by imposing order on the chaos. "What do I do now?" she asked finally. "What do you want to do?" "I want to confront him. I want to throw these pictures in his face and ask him how he could do this to me. I want to scream at him until he understands how much he's hurt me." That's a normal reaction. But Sarah, you need to think strategically. Marcus has been planning this for months. He's protected himself financially, legally, emotionally. If you confront him without a plan, he'll have the advantage. What kind of plan? First, you need a good divorce attorney. Someone who specializes in cases involving hidden assets and financial deception. Second, you need to secure your own finances before he realizes you know. Third, you need to document everything in your own home, any papers, any evidence, anything that might disappear once he knows you're aware of the affair. Sarah nodded slowly, and I could see her marketing professional mind taking over, treating this like a project that needed to be managed rather than an emotional catastrophe. "Will you help me?" she asked. "I don't think I can do this alone." "Of course. Whatever you need." "I need to go home," she said, standing up abruptly. "I need to look through his things, see what else he's been hiding. And I need to call work and tell them I'm taking a few days off." "Sarah, wait." I caught her arm gently. "Don't go home angry. Don't let him see that you know anything until you're ready. Can you do that?" She took a deep breath and I watched her compose herself, drawing on reserves of strength I wasn't sure she knew she had. "Yes, I can do that." As we left the cafe, Sarah turned to me one more time. "Dad, thank you. I know this must have been horrible for you, knowing this and having to tell me, but thank you for protecting me. I love you, sweetheart. We're going to get through this." She nodded, squared her shoulders, and walked to her car with the dignity and determination that reminded me exactly why I was so proud to be her father. Marcus had underestimated both of us, but he was about to learn that the Walsh family was stronger than he had ever imagined. 3 days after our lunch at the cafe, Sarah called me at 6 in the morning. Her voice was calm, steady, and completely different from the devastated woman I had left in the parking lot. "Dad, I did it." I confronted him last night. I sat up in bed, instantly alert. "How did it go?" "Better than I expected. I waited until he got home from his business dinner, which, according to your investigator's timeline, was actually dinner with Amanda. I had all the evidence laid out on the kitchen table like a presentation, financial records, photographs, business documents, everything." "What did he say?" Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. "First he tried to deny it. Then he tried to minimize it, said it was just a friendship that had gotten complicated. Then, when he realized I had documentation of everything, he got angry, started yelling about how I had violated his privacy by hiring a private investigator." "His privacy," I repeated, feeling my own anger flare. I know, the irony wasn't lost on me either. "But Dad, here's the thing, I wasn't scared of him. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I had power in our relationship. He couldn't gaslight me, couldn't make me doubt what I was seeing because I had evidence. I'm proud of you. There's more." When he realized he couldn't manipulate me anymore, he switched tactics. Started talking about how our marriage had been struggling anyway, how we'd grown apart, how maybe this was for the best. Said he'd been planning to talk to me about separation soon anyway. "How did you respond?" I told him I'd save him the trouble. "I'm filing for divorce." The words hung in the air between us, final and powerful. My daughter had made her choice and she was taking control of her life. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm angry. I'm hurt. But Dad, I'm also relieved. I've been living with this feeling that something was wrong for months, blaming myself, trying harder to fix something that was already broken. Now I know it wasn't me. It was never me." Over the next several weeks, I watched Sarah transform. She moved out of the house she had shared with Marcus and into a small apartment closer to her office. She hired Linda Patterson, one of the best divorce attorneys in the city, and armed with Tommy's investigation, Linda built a case that protected Sarah's interests completely. Marcus tried to fight it first. He claimed the business with Amanda was just a side project, that the money he'd spent was his to spend, that Sarah was being vindictive and unreasonable. But when Linda presented the evidence of systematic financial deception and the use of marital assets to fund an affair, his attorney quickly recommended a settlement. The prenup he insisted on before your wedding works in our favor, Linda explained to Sarah during one of their meetings. It was designed to protect his assets, but it also means he can't claim any interest in your retirement accounts or the inheritance from your mother. And given the evidence of financial misconduct, we can argue for reimbursement of the marital funds he spent on his affair. The settlement was finalized 6 weeks after Sarah had confronted Marcus. She kept her retirement savings, received reimbursement for the money Marcus had spent on Amanda, and walked away from their marriage with her dignity intact and her future secure. But the most important change was in Sarah herself. The woman who had been working herself to exhaustion trying to save a marriage that had been over for months was gone. In her place was someone confident, focused, and genuinely happy for the first time in years. I got the promotion, she told me over dinner at a restaurant of her choice, not somewhere Marcus would have approved of, but a place with excellent food and a warm atmosphere. Senior Director of Marketing, 20% raise, my own team, and the best part, I didn't have to worry about how it would affect Marcus's ego. Congratulations, you've worked hard for this. I've been thinking about that, she said, twirling pasta around her fork. I did work hard, but I also held myself back, afraid that succeeding too much would threaten Marcus. I turned down opportunities, worked behind the scenes instead of taking credit, made myself smaller so he could feel bigger. And now I'm done making myself smaller for anyone. The conversation turned to lighter topics, but I found myself watching my daughter throughout the evening, marveling at the change in her. The tension that had lived in her shoulders for years was gone. She laughed more easily, spoke more confidently, and seemed to take up more space in the world. As we prepared to leave, Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. Dad, I need to thank you again. Not just for uncovering the truth about Marcus, but for the way you handled it. You could have just told me what you saw that day, but instead you made sure I had every piece of information I needed to protect myself. I learned a long time ago that information is only powerful when it's complete and accurate. There's something else, she continued. The night Marcus humiliated you at dinner, when he made that comment about licking food off the floor, I should have defended you. I should have stood up and told him his behavior was unacceptable. I'm sorry I didn't. You were in an impossible position. No, I was in a relationship that had trained me to avoid conflict, to smooth things over, to pretend problems didn't exist rather than address them. But that's not who I want to be anymore. 2 months later, Sarah called to tell me about a dinner party she was hosting. Just a few friends from work, nothing fancy. But I wanted you to come. I realized I've never had you over to my new place. Sarah's apartment was everything her house with Marcus hadn't been. Warm, comfortable, filled with photographs and books and the kind of personal touches that made a space feel like home. She had decorated it entirely according to her own taste, without considering anyone else's preferences or opinions. The dinner party was small but lively. Sarah's colleagues clearly respected her, and several of them mentioned projects she was leading, innovations she had implemented, recognition she had received. I found myself bursting with pride, not just for her professional success, but for the confidence with which she moved through her own life. After the guests left, Sarah and I sat on her balcony, looking out over the city lights. I have something to tell you, she said, her voice carrying a note of excitement I hadn't heard in years. What's that? I ran into Marcus last week, at the grocery store of all places. He was with Amanda. I tensed, wondering if seeing them together had reopened old wounds. How was that? Awkward for about 30 seconds, and then, nothing. I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no regret. I looked at him and wondered what I had ever seen in him, how I had ever thought he was worthy of the effort I put into our marriage. That's a good sign. He looked surprised to see me, asked how I was doing, if I was dating anyone. I think he expected me to be devastated, maybe hoped I was falling apart without him. What did you tell him? Sarah smiled, and it was the first genuinely happy smile I had seen from her in years. I told him I was better than I'd been in a long time, and then I walked away. How did he take that? I don't know, and I don't care. That's the amazing part, Dad. I genuinely don't care what Marcus thinks of me anymore. His opinion has no power over me. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this point. It had started with my humiliation at a dinner party, with Marcus's casual cruelty, and my daughter's silence, but it had ended with both of us stronger, more honest, and more connected than we had been in years. The man who had thought he could diminish me, who had believed he could treat me like an irrelevant old fool, had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible. His arrogance had created the circumstances that allowed me to protect my daughter and help her reclaim her life. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Sarah called with news that surprised me. "I'm thinking about dating again," she said. "There's someone at work, actually someone I've known for a while but never really noticed when I was married. He asked me to coffee. How do you feel about that?" Nervous but excited, and Dad, "I'm not settling this time. I know what I deserve now, and I'm not accepting anything less." A year later, Sarah brought David to Sunday dinner at my apartment. He was nothing like Marcus, quieter, kinder, someone who seemed genuinely interested in what Sarah had to say and proud of her accomplishments. When she talked about her work, he listened with attention and asked thoughtful questions. When she mentioned a problem she was dealing with, he offered support without trying to solve it for her. Most importantly, he treated me with respect. Not the performative courtesy Marcus had shown, but genuine interest in my opinions and experiences. He asked about my military service, my thoughts on current events, my relationship with Sarah. He seemed to understand that loving my daughter meant respecting the people who were important to her. As I watched them together, I realized that Marcus's betrayal had been a blessing in disguise. It had forced Sarah to examine what she wanted in a relationship, to understand her own worth, to refuse to accept less than she deserved. The woman sitting at my dinner table was stronger, happier, and more confident than she had ever been during her marriage. That night, after David and Sarah left, I sat in my quiet apartment and thought about the events that had led us here. Marcus had tried to humiliate me, to make me feel powerless and irrelevant. Instead, he had awakened something in me that had been dormant since my retirement, the strategic thinking, the careful planning, the protective instincts that had served me well during my military career. In trying to diminish me, Marcus had reminded me of exactly who I was, and in discovering his betrayal, I had been able to give my daughter the most important gift a parent can offer, the information she needed to protect herself, and the support she needed to build a better life. The last time I saw Marcus was at a restaurant downtown almost 2 years after the divorce. He was alone, looking older and more tired than I remembered. He saw me across the room and nodded stiffly. I nodded back, feeling nothing but a mild sense of satisfaction. The man who had once seemed so powerful, so in control of our family dynamics, now looked like exactly what he was. Someone who had traded genuine love for temporary excitement and discovered too late what he had lost. I thought about walking over, about telling him that Sarah was engaged to a man who loved and respected her, that she had been promoted again and was happier than I had ever seen her. But I realized he no longer deserved updates about my daughter's life. He had forfeited that right when he chose to betray her trust and build his future with someone else. Instead, I finished my dinner and went home to my quiet apartment, where a framed photo of Sarah and David sat on my kitchen table next to the newspaper crossword I worked every morning. It was a simple life, but it was honest, genuine, and filled with people who valued each other. Marcus had taught me an important lesson that night when he humiliated me at his dinner party. He had reminded me that respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn through your actions, your character, and your treatment of others. And he had shown me that sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't anger or retaliation, but patience, planning, and the quiet satisfaction of helping justice prevail. My daughter was free, happy, and building a life with someone who deserved her, and I had played a role in making that possible. At 68 years old, I had learned that it's never too late to stand up for the people you love, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply helping good people build better lives.